So now we're going to just spend one more day on multiplying a binomial by a binomial, and this is day 2. So what I want you to do right now is just take these two problems and multiply it. Go. Just pause. Go. Multiply. So when we multiply a binomial times a binomial, we just distribute it twice. So 4x minus 14x, 14x minus 49. And notice that when we combine like terms here in the middle, my like terms added to 0. So they're not in the answer. So negative 14x and positive 14x, they add to 0. In other words, they disappear. Same thing happens here. Do you think it's a fluke? So look at what we have here. Look at what's in the parentheses. Okay? This is a special case. We have two special cases we're going to talk about today. But the good news is when I'm given them, I can just use the method I did on the first day. Just distribute twice, or FOIL, or use the box method. All of them will work. This first one is what's called the difference of squares. See how this is a perfect square, and this is a perfect square, and there's a minus sign? Perfect square, there's a minus sign. So difference of squares, what that means is that the first thing you have to do a lot of times is just identify them. So it's going to be the same numbers, same terms, same monomials, so the same terms, but they are going to have opposite signs in the parentheses. Okay? Now, the second, and then you're just going to multiply it out. We'll talk about a shortcut down here on how you can just do it even a little quicker to multiply, not that this takes any time. Okay? Perfect square trinomials. This is a perfect square trinomial. And when it gets multiplied out, you'll see why. Now, with this, there is also a shortcut, and I'll tell you about that in just a second. But if I'm going to be doing this, the surefire way that works every time is I just take and I write it out twice. So I just write twice. Write this problem twice. So I'm going to write 2x plus 5 times 2x plus 5. Okay? Then I multiply like I've always multiplied. I'm going to FOIL, or else I'm going to distribute twice. So I get 4x squared plus 10x, and then plus 10x plus 25. I combine like terms, and I get 4x squared plus 20x plus 25. Okay? So this works every single time. This works. So just write it out twice and multiplying it. Okay? So do these two problems right now, if you will, for me. Pause and do those. So when we distribute twice or use FOIL, come up with 36x squared plus 30x minus 25. And again, those middle terms are going to drop. So we just get 36x squared minus 25. Okay? When I come over here, I'm just going to take whatever that parentheses is, that quantity. I'm going to write it twice. I'm going to take 3x times 3x, 9x squared. 3x times negative 4, negative 12x. Negative 4 times 3, negative 12x. Negative 4 times 4, I get 16. So I get 9x squared minus 24x plus 16. So this is a perfect square trinomial, okay, because these two are both perfect squares, the first and the last term, and then I have a trinomial. So that works every single time. Now, if you're a person who likes shortcuts, you might want to pay attention to this, but you've got to be very careful with the shortcuts. You've got to actually follow them, especially on this perfect square trinomial. Be very careful with it. The difference of squares one, that one's an easy one. Now, in order to use a shortcut, you have to be able to identify what you have. So if it's a difference of squares, you're going to have the same terms, but you're going to have opposite signs. Here's the shortcut. Well, here, let's just do one while we have it. If I have 3x plus 5 and 3x minus 5. We did this one up top, okay? So, do I have the same terms? Yes. Do I have opposite signs? Yes. So I square the first term. 3 squared. 3x, and I'm going to square both of those. So 3 squared is 9, x squared is x squared. Okay? And then I'm going to square the last term. Square each term. What am I doing? Square each term. And I'm going to take 5 and square it. So I have 9x squared, and I have 25. It will always be a minus sign. Okay? When we do this, and that's because I'm taking a positive times a negative. Positive times a negative is always going to give me a negative. So it's 9x squared. Good. Perfect square trinomial. We'll just take what we had before, 3x quantity squared. We'll use those same ones. So, easy to identify. If I have a binomial with a quantity squared, I've got a perfect square trinomial. So here's the shortcut. Be very careful with it. Square the first term. So that gives me 9x squared. Now, watch this. Multiply the first term, so 3x times the last term, so times 5, negative 5, times 2. So I'm going to take 3x times negative 5 times 2. So that gives me negative 15 times 2. That's going to give me a negative 30x. Then I'm going to just square the last term. 5 squared is 25. The last sign, the sign here will always be positive, will always be a plus, because I'm taking a negative times a negative, or a positive times a positive. So that will always be a plus sign. Okay? But I take and square the first term, take the first term times the second term times 2, that's my middle term, and I square the last term. Those are the shortcuts. If you don't remember these shortcuts, you're going to be fine, because this will always work, this will always work. Okay? Not a problem. So let's look at the homework again. So we're going to have shortcuts, we're going to have, and I just threw in some other ones too, because I think more practice is always better. Down here it says find the area. How do I find area? Area is equal to length times width, or I can write it as base times height, right? So I'm going to take and multiply these two. I'm going to take and multiply these two. That doesn't look, oh, okay. So we're going to multiply those, and you're going to find the area. Now this one down here is very similar to what we did in the last section. We're going to have to find the area of the shaded region. So this, so we're going to have to find the area of the whole big thing, area of the small one, and then subtract. Now I will tell you that this one inside, this little square in here, what you can't see is it's saying this side is x and this side is x. This little corner box right here just means it's a square. It's a right angle. So this inside has that area. Good. So try those. You're going to be fine. And do the shortcuts or not do the shortcuts, I'll leave that up to you. Great. If you have any questions, you know where to find us.